There's a great story here about ethnographies of horse cart racing in Finland.
Yeah. So actually we are now screen recording everything what we talk is now going online.
Great.
We have 3 guests, so welcome. Tervetuloa kaikki mukaan tänne Digitaalisen myynnin ja markkinoinnin kehittäjäohjelmaan etäpäivään. Meillä on vieraana Thatcher Gigglebug yhtiöstä täällä Helsingistä ja täällä on ollut oikeastaan keskustelut käynnissä jo viimeiset 40 minuuttia. Ollaan odotettu, että me saadaan lisää vieraita tänne online. Tällä hetkellä meiltä löytyy myös linkki tuolta netistä. Sitä painamalla ne pääsee mukaan. Tästä tehdään myös podcast, joka pääsee kuuntelemaan sitten tuolta. Tällä hetkellä taitaa mennä varmaan Tamoran omille podcastille.
Julkaistaan lähiaikoina.
Kyllä. Eli Tom Hageleberg on täällä näkymättömissä, luurit päässä. Valmistautuu juuri koitokseen täällä podcastin puolella. Minä olen Juha Jääskeläinen. Ja Thatcher pitää meille luentoa oikeastaan digitaalisen markkinoinnin saloista ja tuo esiin kaikenlaista hyvin intellektuaalihenkilö ja hyvin mielenkiintoinen humoristinen kaveri. Linkkejä oikeastaan tässä mitä me ollaan tehty täällä näin, niin ainakin digitaalisen myynnin markkinoinnin kehittäjäohjelmasta löytyy linkkiä Gigglebug Oy tarinaan ja mitä siellä taustalla on, niin en mene siihen sen enempää. Ja oikeastaan luentohan pidetään nyt englanniksi ja Thatcher saa sitten itse kertoa vähän itsestään ja siitä taustastaan ja mitä aikoo tänään puhua, mutta me ollaan tässä mukana. Me tullaan myös hetken päästä kysymään teiltä muutamia kysymyksiä, että miten asia on omaksuttu. Mutta tervetuloa mukaan, kutsukaa kaveritkin mukaan tähän lähetykseen. Tämä on ihan avoimessa verkossa tällä hetkellä. Tänne sitä on tulla. Me ollaan nyt Tamoran tiloissa Siltasaaressa ja ne, jotka tietää tilan, niin täällä on tarjoulutkin valmiina niille henkilöille, jotka haluavat.
Voi tulla livenäkin paikan.
Niin voi tulla livenäkin paikan päälle.
Sen oli, ja sitten Case Lohimaa toimii tietynlaisena siltana, jos on ulkopuoliselta tulevia. Eikö sen voisi jotenkin, jos ihmettelette, eikö se ole tässä sellainen bridge?
Joo, bridge tähän näin. Digitaalisen myynnin markkinoinnin kehittäjäohjelmassa, niin Lohimaa on ollut aikaisemmin esillä ja se tulee nyt tässä seuraavan muutaman tunnin aikana, niin siitä tehdään tämmöinen case-esimerkki, case-harjoitus, jossa päästään työstämään taas uudella näkökulmalla uutta drivea Lohimaan caseen ja päästään käymään sitten mahdollisesti myös siellä paikan päällä uudelleen. Mutta me ollaan sen verran aikataulussa tässä myöhässä, niin lähdetään hommaan liikkeelle ja ei mitään, niin annetaan Thatcherille sen mahdollisuus.
Yes, we've got about 2 hours with each other. It's just now in 10. Because we had planned for about 7 or 8 people on this call, I think we're actually fine for time. If we start with a quick round of introductions, if we talk about what our objectives are for the learning goals in this session, and then we look at the objectives for Lohima. I'd like to do a little bit of learning on what you've been involved in the different projects and areas, especially because there are just 2 or 3 of you. It might be useful to focus on the specific areas, whether it's the toy store you've been working on or the glass manufacturing company. Just if I know where you're coming from and what perspective you have on this case study, it'll be helpful. So what I was going to suggest is that we start with what a friend of mine calls his Viking check-in. Is apparently a tradition that goes back to Vikings sitting around and doing 3 things. Boasting. You know what boasting means? It means talking about a success you've had, a win you've had, something that you are proud of. And it's not about your ego, it's about focusing on the positive, focusing on a success or a win. The challenge is something that you're challenged with, something that you want to overcome. And then a toast is just like, keep this a toast to, back in the days it would have been a god, might have been to somebody in your team who's been incredibly strong and useful. And those 3 elements, if we sort of go one by one, I'll start with my boast. I think my boast is quite just about where I come from professionally. and that I was quite honored that my experience in kids media and cartoons and the digital side of that seemed important enough to be invited here to speak about this stuff with a group of people that are coming from a very different perspective. And that was just like a nice win, because I'm not looking for extra business or speaking opportunities, and a couple of different times in the past year I've been invited to events like this, and I find that very gratifying, and also, you know, it sort of sends you a message of like, yeah, I'm doing something cool and meaningful in the world that's helping more than just me. So that's my boast. Can you tell us or share with the group and also the people who might be watching this later, could you share something that in this work on Lohima that personally you feel you're proud of, that's been a success in your experiences so far?
Mikä oli semmoinen onnistuminen, mitä sä voit sanoa, että mitä tässä Lohimaa-projektissa oli sinulle juuri tärkeää, ja mitä voit sanoa onnistumiseksi?
No, tässä onnistumisessa tietysti tämä on tehnyt elämysmatkat, ja sitten on jotakin on tiimissä on kokeiltu, kun tämä on uusien ihmisen kanssa pitänyt hieroa on suhdetta ja vuorovaikutukset, ja se oli vaan haastettava tietysti, mutta se on kuitenkin, että pitää aina tehdä yhteistyötä erilaisen ihmisen kanssa, ja on, tämä Jouko on, hän on siellä linjassa, hän kuuli miten minä puhun, eli tietysti, että tässä onnistuu ja oli mielenkiintoinen tämä haaste tekemään, ja minä luulisin, että minä onnistun sen mukana, mikä minulla oli takana, mitä minä oppinut ja mikä kokemusta, ja sitten verkkokauppaan ja uusia asioita avattu, mikä on joutunut opiskelemaan listaa. Digitaalista on tässä projektissa on käynnisen, ja eli se kun ensimmäinen oli projekti tietysti sieltä on, jos nyt on tämä mennyt jo 3. kuukausi, että minä ajattelen ehkä parempi onnistunut.
Kyllä. So briefly, Tinaina is talking about that her background on tourism and travel helped her to see the good sides on Lohimaa, and of course, because it was the first project, there was certain challenges, but she is characterizing the post as being successful for showing that there's new ways of seeing integration, to integrate the sales and the digital marketing and sales, example on a web shop, and on making it more visible, Lohimaa more visible on a map.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you involved with the digital web store with the glass company? Was that your group? What group were you involved in?
For glass company
Lasilinkki.
is
Yeah.
this is project is very interesting, and more physically we must to do job for this company, like inventorization, stock inventorization,
Yep.
and sell for net shop for different canals. This is very interesting project for me, because this is the products, what's glass products, very mitenkä minä sanon, taiteellinen, eli on ala, miten voisi sanoa tässä.
Yeah.
Niin.
No, it's
The company is very interesting. What they were actually doing as a team, they were building they were also making a video. So that you did a couple of versions of the video. And Tinaina made as well one version of the video, which was the company didn't have any advertisement videos online, and so they made their own suggestions on how to improve that. And also
and so we have a video now for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what they are now doing is the web shop. So practice and yeah.
Yep. That is actually very relevant. Later in this session, we'll come back to why and how that can be useful and what I can maybe bring to make that quite useful. Excellent. And Yuko, do you have a boast for us about what you've been most happy with, successful, what you're proud of?
Olisiko sulla lyhyesti sanottuna sanot yhdessä lauseessa semmoinen ajatus, mikä kuvaa sinua näissä projekteissa? Minkälainen sinä olet? Mikä voisi olla se, kuka sinä olet?
Niin oppija tässä ollut, että en ollut niinkään tekijä, että tässä on ollut niin paljon etevämpiä tekijöitä kyllä. Että,
Yeah.
että
So, what Yoko, yeah.
oppija.
Oppia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what Yoko is now telling that they, example for the Lohima project, they were doing collaboration, they were doing together, and his role has been, he's describing this more as a learner. He's learning all the time, so his the views that he sees and shows himself is by participation and by saying that the whole picture of digital marketing and sales, it has some gaps. So his view is to push himself on front.
Yeah. I mean, this is a great theme because everybody in business and in tourism and in media and entertainment, we're all learning, and we need to learn quite fast because these tools and these audiences, this technology, it changes things so much, and it also makes things. I think the key theme that I would like to present for today is how personal these tools are. That in a world of big data, rather than generic universal marketing, we can be very personal about marketing. And we can be very focused on how to connect. Maybe it's the same marketing message for every person, but it allows us to find the perfect audience to connect that message to. And that we'll come back to that later, but that's a great theme, Yoko. Thank you. I would move on now to the challenge. I will explain. The challenge for me is that I work mostly in kids' cartoons and entertainment. So I'm a producer, and so my challenge today is connect my experiences, skills, knowledge from little kids watching cartoons and maybe their parents buying things to nature and tourism and experiences. And also, I think the connection there is maybe stronger than I thought when I started, because what I do is we start with an art project or an undeveloped business or concept, and we develop that to meet both the commercial needs of the market, and we are very focused on internationalization and bringing something to the global market around the world. And so almost every project that we work on in kids animation is about how do we make this work for kids and families everywhere in the world. And so I've spent years now working on exactly those questions, but it's always a challenge. So that's my challenge, is to connect those two things. Yuko, what's the challenge for you at the moment?
No, itse olen selvittelemässä nyt tätä hakukoneen mainontaa, joka on uusi asia.
Part of the learning process is to figure out the right way to improve the sales and visibility of both of the company and both of the products that they are now integrating. There's now about 300 products that they brought to different web shops that they're trying, experimenting, and now experimenting with SEO.
So are you using Google AdWords and AdSense?
No se vielä miettii sitä tällä
Okei,
hetkellä.
joo.
Mahdollisimman pienellä resurssilla, eli nyt tämä tutkinnan ala
Kyllä.
asiat. Eli tutkinnan pitäisi on tehnyt myyntiä ja on päästä eroon tämä on varastosta, mikä oli 30 vuotta vanha ja tuotteita. Eli pitää ennen on tosi tämmöisellä lyhyellä ajalla on hyvä kanava, mitä kautta on yrittäjä saa tuoton tästä tuotteesta.
Kyllä, kiitos. Yes, short answer is yes.
Great, okay.
It's under it's their task is now to make a presentation on what is most cost effective solution to improve the sales. Is it currently to invest AdWords or is it something else?
Is it content marketing? Is it digital? Yeah.
No.
It's the answer is it's always a mix. But I would encourage you, just as a side note here, we won't focus on ad campaigns, but because Yoko, you mentioned search engine optimization. One of the tools that's free and I believe most powerful is inside the AdWords campaign tools are research tools to understand what keywords have traffic. It's just something that, like, in the process, if you're planning and creating a presentation about a strategy, it would be very helpful for you to start using that tool and also to start understanding the interface and the logic of how ad campaigns in paid campaigns work. So just understanding the tools and also being able to have free access to data that otherwise isn't visible in Google Trends or other tools around search engine optimization, but happen to be free and quite easy to use inside the AdWord campaigns. So that's just a free tip. Check it out. I don't know if you want to translate, but
Ja. Eli täällä tulee selkeästi ohjeistusta ja ajatuksia siitä, että AdWordsilla on myös muitakin mahdollisuuksia ja muita vaihtoehtoja ja sellaisia ilmaisia työkaluja löytyy myös markkinoilta, joita voidaan hyödyntää ja myöskin tässä Lasilinkki-projektissa kannattaa ottaa huomioon, että on eri vaihtoehtoja ja nämä vaihtoehdot kannattaa huomioida siinä esityksessä ja myöskin nyt tässä kokonaiskehittäjäohjelmassa, että lähdetään hakemaan vaihtoehtoja vain investoidulle markkinoinnille. Eli katsotaan sitä, että meillä on sisältömarkkinointi, me voidaan sisältömarkkinoinnin kautta luoda uusia toimintamalleja, mutta myös ilmaisten työkalujen avulla, jotka voidaan integroida esimerkiksi AdWordsiin. Ja näistä keskusteluista ja linkkejä varmasti tuodaan lähteeksi sitten tämän presentaation jälkeen.
Ja vahva semmoinen tiedolla johtamisen näkökulma, että siellä on se tieto, katsokaa mitä ihmiset hakee tietyssä skenessä.
Kyllä.
Yeah. Okay. And Zihu, can we ask you to tell us what your challenge is now? What's on your menu for the next? What's on your mind about this project?
Onko sinä lailla mitään erityistä, mikä on tällä hetkellä semmoinen?
Suomeksi sanoi.
Joo.
Juha, voitko sinne?
Kyllä.
Eli tässä vaiheessa, että kun tämä on 3. projekti menossa, että on kuitenkin puolivaiheessa olen ja tunsin osaamista monessa aloissa ja kuitenkin, että myyntin ja verkkokaupan perustamisen liittyviä asioita, kun tämä minulle on projektissa osallistumisen on tarkoituksena, eli kaikki mikä on alun perin digitaalista on perustamisen, eli se osaamista minulla tässä on puhuttu, eli tässä vaiheessa, että on opiskelen itse tietysti, katson mitenkään, mutta käytännössä on takia, eli kun on tarkoituksena yrityksen perustaa on verkkokauppa.
Kyllä.
Ja tässä en tunsin vielä vahvana, mutta muut alueet oli tietysti on aika helpolla sen takia, kun on 25 vuotta yrittäjänä toiminut, on tuttut asiat matkailualla ja sitten myöskin tämä kauppa on ja kaikki jutut, ne oli minulle vain tietysti uusitunut, mitä vähän on tänään ihan viimeisellä teknologian mukaisesti. Tämä oli erittäin hyvä minulle pointti.
Kyllä, kiitos. So what Sinana is actually talking and Yoko is actually referring to similar issues are that the webshop marketing and marketing itself on a digital basis is now currently on mine and what the ideas behind now are to find the relevant information and what is the relevant information and categorize to find the right arguments to sell these tools and to understand first, find the information, understand these tools and and the best size of each marketing tool, and then to find the right ways to implement it.
And so it's true that both of you are involved in the web shop development for the glass factory. Is your focus now?
Yes.
That's really nice.
And Ginaida is also. Oliko niin, että olitte molemmat siellä lelukaupassa myös mukana?
Joo, kyllä.
Joo. They're both also in the toy shop.
Oh, that's wonderful. I absolutely. So let's make that our focus. Is it Zinaida?
Yeah.
Zinaida, can you tell us a toast? What are you grateful for? Who are you grateful for in this process? Kipis. A morning kipis with no alcohol. I'm sorry, but
eli näin niin kuin suomeksi, että mistä asioista olet kiitollinen, mitkä asiat näihin projektiin liittyen saavat sinut kiitollisuuden tunteen kasvamaan. Eli sisällä se, että sä olet tunnet, että jes, mä olen tässä mukana ja että sä olet löytänyt sen oikean avun tai asian, joka synnyttää sinussa sen sellaisen tunteen. Pystytkö kuvailemaan sellaista?
No Lasse Linkin projekti minulle on todella kasvattava monipuolisesti digitaalisessa maailmassa ja se on aivan toiminut. Luovuttaa on käyttänyt paljon. Voiko vaikka käännä tämän lyhyeksi?
Yeah, luovut, yeah. So the grateful here is to be in the process of creativity. To
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I think I work as an animation producer, and what I love about my job is connecting the creative art and the commercial market, building the bridge between an artist and an idea or a product and the commercial market and an audience, and building a business and making money around that. It feels like that is a shared theme here. Jukko.
Ja sitä, että minä olen huomannut, saako tässä vielä lisäsanan?
Joo.
Ja minä olen huomannut, että itse yrittäjä hän oli luottanut meidän tiimimme ja uskonut, että tosisesti hän on palautteet, on minä huomannut yrittäjältä erittäin myönteinen ja positiivinen, että me teemme todellisesti paljon työtä tämän yrityksen on hyväksi. Eli se oli ihana palaute ja koko tämä henkilökunta ja siellä on hyvä henki. Se oli minulle erittäin tärkeä tunte, että kun itse yrittäjänä on tämä asioita ajatellen aina on tärkeää, kun yrityksessä on tiimin henki ja on henkilökunta ovat kehittämässä kokonaisuutta.
Kyllä.
Yeah.
And the second word is trust.
Yeah.
That the entrepreneurs are trusting. They have a trust
Between these business owners and this team.
Yeah.
And I would also add to this, what I'm grateful for is that your case studies are focused on an independent toy shop at a time when Toys R Us and big global chains are closing. It's a place where people can go in person, experience things, touch things, and also it's in a time when toys and products are driven by data and online retail and recommendation systems rather than a person's recommendation and opinion and curation. It's like what you're doing is you're supporting a small independent that wants to curate good toys at a time when that is completely missing from the market. And I kind of feel the same way. I'm grateful that your case study on glass is at a time when IKEA is what we have in most homes and offices and restaurants. And I think it's really nice that you have the opportunity to support things that are radically different from the big trends on the market. And you're doing that using very big ideas and very big tools and thinking, how can we transform this small local business? How can we scale this and make this bigger, maybe even global?
Yes.
I'm inspired by that. So I'm gonna say here. I'm gonna toast to that. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yukko, or Yoko. What are you grateful for? What's your toast?
Mistä olet kiitollinen ja millä haluat antaa maljan lyhykäisyydessä näissä projekteissa?
Näissä kurssin puitteissa, missä olet?
No vaikka kurssin puitteissa voit sanoa sitten vaikka jos ei heti löydy, niin sitten voit sanoa ihan ylipäänsä yleisesti, mutta kurssin puitteissa näin aluksi.
Kiitollinen olen siitä, että olen terve ja eikä ainakaan pahoja haittaa yksityiselämässä on
Ja sitten,
hyviä asioita.
ja sitten myös kurssin puitteissa.
Hyvä, että saa jotakin valmista aikaa, niin se hyvä tunne, että tietysti valmis ryhmä saa, ja yrittäjä odottaa meiltä jotakin ja saadaan sitä valmista, niin se on hyvä, että olemme hyödyksi sitä, että meiltä odotetaan, että jotakin saamme aikaan, ja sitä valmista saadaan, niin se tuntuu hyvältä tietysti.
To characterize it in one word is that we've made results. That grateful that we have made the right choices to create the product that is working. Yeah.
That's very important to see. Yeah, and I also think it's great. What I hear from you is your focus is learning, but even now, when you still feel that you're a student, you already see results. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah. So that just to start summarizing, so we can make some notes.
Yeah.
You now have a new tool, which is the Viking check-in. I think it's a very nice one to experiment with. 3 things: the boast, the challenge, and the toast. It helps if you've got a beer in your hand, but another day. Please take that away. You've got the recommendation that in this process of developing a presentation and proposing a strategy for these 2 businesses and search engine optimization, please don't, even though you're not spending money now, please don't ignore Google AdWords. Learn that system now and check out the tool inside there and use that tool to plan your keyword searches and how to connect to an audience. It's a very good one. The third tool that I'd like to offer you today is called Rosa. And I think because we have such a small group, I would prefer, and just thinking about the time and how much more content I want to offer you, rather than do this exercise, I'm going to give you an example of this exercise and then ask you as a team, or with your teams, because there's 3 or 4 people in each group, to take this tool, sit with your team, and go through this process. For the toy shop, go through this process for the glass company. And so, but because I only knew before this morning's session, I only knew about Lohima, the destination, I'm going to give you an example of Rosa for Lohima. Just for the hotel and for the fishing and the tourism.
Yeah.
And so Rosa is 4 words, 4, not 5, 4, only 4. 4. Number 1 is reality. What's the situation now? R. 2 is objectives. What are our objectives? What are our goals? Before we decide what to do, actions. Actions is the last one. We step back and we say, what are the possible solutions to reach this objective? Not one, but open the doors and think about different paths and different strategies to reach those objectives. So and those 4 letters, R-O-S-A, Rosa. We had a cat named Rosa. One other thing about me that I just wanted to share. My wife and I have a family company with 2 other partners, and we happen to be the producers. I don't know if you're aware of this. Did they know about Metsin Kapkama and my background there?
Metsin Kapkama.
Yeah. After our session, do have a look at this, because this to me is very powerful content marketing for nature and locations and outdoor experiences around Finland. And the results in numbers of Finns traveling to local nature, spending their holidays here and not at other places, we've seen in the data and we hear stories constantly how powerful this is. So this is about stories and about video. This is content marketing. And in this case, YLE financed the content marketing and gave us a half an hour ad on primetime TV to promote nature and Finland. Wonderful. We're talking about something a little bit different, but I think if you look at this and you understand, if you think about the audience and why they react to this, you might find some lessons to bring to your own projects, particularly around the destination. My wife and I created this together. She's the main producer. She's one of the hosts, and we've also been successful in internationalizing this. And so we're taking this franchise or format to Australia, the UK, South Africa, Ireland. And so some of my expertise comes from, let's take something local and make it international by sharing that model. That might be something in your business in the future that you consider. If you're successful with supporting this local independent toy store in one location, can you recreate that and offer that as a package and as a service to other independent toy stores? And the same for sustainable design. There's an incredible amount of Finnish and Nordic design that are looking for answers for how to connect with an audience and sell their products. And on the other side, an audience that's looking for this stuff. But if we come back to Rosa, reality, objectives, solutions, and actions. This is what I see as the reality. This is Lohima and a website. The first time I went here, it loaded really slowly. Something about the hosting is not so great. Obviously, there's a language question. If our reality is it's all in Finnish and we're not changing that, then another part of our reality is we're focused on local tourism. If that's not going to change, if that's part of our reality, I'm like, okay, really clear message here. I know exactly who my audience is. I'm not thinking about German or Chinese tourism. Let's forget that. Or actually, our reality is it's only in Finnish. It needs to be larger. So you have to kind of like sit down and really just be honest about what the reality is. I was told that the objective is to develop international business. Do you agree with that? You're inside the project. You're not here at Tamara. Do you believe that the correct objective for your work is to develop international business?
Linkissä kyllä, että on sivuilla he valmistuvat messuun ja osallistuvat vielä Etelä-Amerikassa on messulla, ei siis collection. Nimenomaan, että kun nuori on yrittäjä, omistaja ja hän omalla on nykyaikaisella on markkinoinnilla yrittää pyrkiä kehittää, on markkinointia, on erittäin hyvää videoita.
Kyllä. So actually, Chinada has a history part with Lohima. She's been working to get Russian tourists.
Nice.
Yeah, back in the days.
Okay, so it's correct to say that Lohima as a tourist destination are not motivated strongly to internationalize their business, while these connected businesses, the toy shop and the glass company, are ready and willing and wanting to internationalize. Good. Okay. So then I would say, just because I've made these examples, I'll share with you my first thinking that you can then take away and practice the same exercise based on the glass company and the toy store. So if I just use myself as a target audience, and I think about my behavior, very often I would actually start with a search using Google Maps. And this is true if I'm looking for a hotel, a place to stay. It's true if I'm in a place and I want to go look for something to do. And it's also true that in terms of search engine optimization, Google Maps is far less competitive and far easier to optimize than a web page. And so if I click on the Google Maps link, what I've done is I've just gone to Google Maps and I found Lohima Fish and Travel.
Joo.
Just as a practice, go there, have a look. What do you think the reality of that is? My reality, if I think about myself as a target audience, I'm like, oh, if I'm not into fishing and lots of tourists standing in front of an ugly building, I don't think I'm going to go there. Right? So right away, and it's a 3.9 rating. So, and what I see is I see a tourist center building with a lot of people standing in front of it. I don't see a river, I don't see nature, I don't see a beautiful place to stay next to a river here that I see on the map. I'm like, that place is not for me, forget it. So these are really simple things that Lohima reality check, even before we jump to actions, let's just talk about the reality. That's, if your objective is local or domestic tourism, you really need to be thinking about, one of the things I find surprising, maybe I should switch to Finnish and see what the name of the Google Maps location is, but if I don't have a Finnish website and I'm focused on not international tourism right now, the name shouldn't be Fish and Travel. It should be something else.
Yeah.
The picture should show the beautiful river or somebody with a crazy huge fish or this like smoking or grilling outside or something like this that connects why the best experience possible with just Google Maps and what I see. The same is true for me. I go to Booking very often. Airbnb, you should absolutely always have a listing if you can find a way. Even if it's a hotel, you should be also on Airbnb. You should be on Booking, absolutely. The Booking, we can open that. I'm sorry you can't see my screen. You can look at this later yourself. It just doesn't, here it's called, when I go to booking.com, it's not called Fish and Travel. It's called Lodge Hotel Lohima. They haven't decided, the reality is they haven't decided who they are, what pictures and words they're using to describe themselves. And I'm like, wait, now it kind of looks like a spa thing. I don't see anybody in nature. It looks very nice and kind of fancy, but it's not a lodge. Like, I just come back, there's people in business suits and some women, it's unclear what this is. So now I've gone to two different places. If I'm looking to choose a holiday for myself, even if I'm in Finland, I want to know, even if I want a spa that I can go and sit and have breakfast in my business suit, the other thing I just checked, and people are smart checking different digital sources, like how does it look here, how does it look there, at least you check 2 or 3 things. If you see different pictures and different words, that will very likely not be your choice. So same thing with TripAdvisor. These are just personally what I use. When we start talking, this picture I see now is just a bad night picture of the same building. I'm saying the same thing. You need to have a really clear digital identity, and it needs to be consistent, the same, across the key resources that you believe your target audience is going to look at. And this is not hard stuff. This is just a reality check, and you look at it. If you look at the glass store, shop, or you look at the toy store, it's the same thing. Just make sure you go to always Google Maps. I cannot emphasize that enough. The website, and it's about pictures and a little bit less words. It's about absolutely having good reviews there. This is the basic reality that you're looking for. Objectives. If we're talking about developing local business, I think Zinaida, you were talking about Russian tourism. I would even consider Russian tourism local tourism. And so even if you're not trying to internationalize strongly, because Russians don't speak Finnish and very often English, I'm like, okay, interesting. If my objective is local tourism, how do we define local tourism? And particularly, can Lohima give you their data on guests? When people check into that hotel, have they shared with you data? you don't have to imagine this. We're sitting here like, oh, years ago I supported Russian tourism. Oh, there's lots of Russian tourisms. This is a business that's been running for enough years that they can share their data. And it should be your job to ask for that data, look at it, and not pretend we think we know what we're building, but just base it on the idea that there are customers. How do you improve and bring more of those customers to this place? So that's another reality, is do we have data? Have they shared data with you? Do you know what the guests are from last year and the years before?
Yeah, a short way answering this is that the visitors booths haven't been open.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. I mean, that's a basic thing. If they're saying to you, no, we're not going to share data, then I think what you said before, they're not so interested in internationalization and working on this as the glass company and the toy shop. I think that's a really clear message that you can't do very much for them if they can't share their data with you. Because you're talking about digital marketing, which should be based on strong creativity, but driven by data. Like, you have to take a theory and test it either against data you already have or data that you will collect. And so, yeah, I would say, like, okay, let's forget about them and let's focus on the glass company, let's focus on the toy shop. For the glass, my other big questions when I'm going through realities are, do I have data from a physical location? Do I have Google Analytics and pixels on the site? So I'm collecting data and I can look at that data about traffic, about where visitors to the website are coming from. Do you know the reality for those? And do you know what I'm talking about when I talk about Google Analytics and pixels?
Teidän asiantuntemuksen
Kyllä
osoitus.
tässä on koko ajan mukana, että tässä auton tietysti Tapio ja Janne, mutta tässä on hyvin pitkälti on perehtynyt ja osaamista tässä lisännyt koko ajan.
It's something that surprisingly many companies miss, and it really comes back to, if it's one solution. It's not the only solution, but I need different solutions to developing local or international business for this hotel. Certainly one of them is data from the hotel on previous current guests. I needed, that's more an action, sorry. I'm breaking out of my own model, that's embarrassing. Google Analytics and data on digital guests and visitors, and working with that. And of course, one of the solutions that's not even, I wouldn't even put it as an action point, like, before you can get to a further action, you need your brand cleaned up online. What are the basic sort of foundation before you can jump to any actions? Like, none of these actions around search engine optimization or bringing new traffic will have any real results unless you start with a foundation of having a clean digital presence. So actions, if I'm thinking about Lohima, is to really know my audience, to be deciding, are we staying with Finnish tourists? Are we going to add Russian tourists to that? Are we going to add Chinese? Like, once I've made a decision about that, then I can sit down, and one of the first things I would do, regardless of what I decide is my audience for this, is I would start to, again, ask for data, but I would, after I have data, or if I don't have data, we turn on our creative imaginations. And here I'd like to offer you an exercise called a persona exercise. Have you done this? Where you imagine who a guest is or a visitor are and describe them in some detail.